To tell you, both of them, I endorse 100%. Jennifer has sold us homes, has sold our daughters homes, so she knows real estate. And I said, look, you got to do a show. You just got to, get in there and do a show. And then Lou Hutt is the tax man extraordinaire, lawyer, accountant, tax expert, small business expert. And I would tell you this. If they decide to have a boot camp, then you better be signing up as quickly as possible. So, Lou, if you don't mind, I'll start with the lady in the house.
Yes,
and good morning to you, too. But let's talk about what prompted the two of you. Let me get Jennifer's point of view first, and then I'll get Lou. And you feel free to jump in, Lou Hutt, anytime. What prompted the two of you to get together to put this asset building boot camp together?
The most important thing when people are buying real estate is really understanding how there are so many tax advantages to owning real estate. One of my jokes is always, are you interested in making Paris Hilton rich and famous, or would you like to invest in your own real estate? There's one way you can either rent and then you're paying your landlord's mortgage. But the thing is if you compare what you would pay in rent to what you would pay in mortgage, then one of the biggest differences is all of the tax deductions. So Lou Hutt is the tax expert, and putting that together with real estate, it's so very important to really understand how you have so many advantages. And if you don't look at both of them, you're not looking at the full picture. You're only looking at a slice of the pie. So it's really important.
So let me get your perspective, Lou, as it relates to the asset building boot camp that you're putting together.
Well, first and foremost, good morning, Joe and Jennifer. And Joe, thanks a million for having us on. Joe, as Jennifer suggested, this whole concept of asset building really was kind of born from the idea that our society is sort of complex financially, and people are facing different kind of challenges, whether it's underemployment and sometimes unemployment. Folks are living longer, and they're discovering that they're at risk for running out of money. So Jennifer and I put our heads together really and said, hey, real estate as one item is probably the largest asset on most asset portfolios if you take the average individual. Mm-hmm. And so we really ought to tie asset building and ideas and strategies for building asset building and tie it to real estate. And as Jennifer says, there's so much correlation between good personal financial habits and, frankly, investing in real estate and then maximizing tax savings. So we thought it'd be good to integrate both the real estate piece and the tax and finance piece to come up with this program to show that we call asset building.
I was looking at a program over the weekend about billionaires. Mm-hmm. If this was America's Secrets or something like that, but it was talking about how America has more billionaires than any other country on the planet. And by far, Russia has, I forget what the number is, China has so many, but the United States has made or has more billionaires. But the one thing that fascinated me about this special I saw was that the vast majority of every billionaire did not inherit their money. Yeah. They made it.
Yes,
it's the American dream.
And that's what they said. They are in essence the American dream. But guess what? They emphasized more than anything else.
Real estate.
Real estate.
It was
real estate.
That's it.
It was real estate.
It's the key to wealth. It really is.
Well, you know what? And I'm not surprised, because if you think about most entrepreneurs, when they go in to get financing to start their business,
right,
they usually leverage the equity in their real estate. So they may not have collateral in terms of certificates of deposit or highly valued stock portfolios, but they got a house and they got some equity. And that's frankly where you get there's so much to gain from hearing professionals like Jennifer Hammond talk about the selection of real estate, your entry plan and your exit plan. If you're at a stage, and what we're going to do in this show, by the way, Joe, is we're going to look at we're going to start with millennials. As a matter of fact, we're going to start with the X generation, because there's a set of strategies that are applicable to people that are in that age frame. Then we're going to talk about millennials. We're even going to talk about baby boomers, because in each of those phases of life, you have to sort of rebalance your portfolio of assets, and your financial priorities change as well. And I think, Jennifer, you would agree.
I would totally agree. I mean, as you know, from first-time home buyer, that's a very different decision than when they're transitioning into their second home or their third home. Mm-hmm. And then when you're later in life and you're trying to decide, okay, what do I want to do? Not only, and one of the greatest parts about being together with Lou is that we're looking at IRAs. Would you take the money in the IRA and do a self-directed IRA and then invest in real estate? Would that be an option? Mm-hmm. There are all sorts of things that you can do, but if you don't know about them, then you don't even realize, again, knowledge is power.
I bring up Lou and Jennifer, and we talk about this as I drive around and visit different cities. The word, and I don't necessarily consider it a negative, although sociologically and racially some people do, and that is the gentrification. And we talk about neighborhoods that have become gentrified. But I look at it as smart investment. So let me say, if it's Washington, and you see it in cities all over the country, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Los Angeles, where people are moving into neighborhoods that at one point were, and both of you talk about this from your different perspectives, were hit rock bottom. But then you see young people, speaking of millenniums and Generation X, moving in, and for all practical purposes, it's funny. I talked to an older guy. Matter of fact, I'll tell you who it was. It was the CEO of SiriusXM.
Really?
And remember, Sherry, we were talking to him. His daughters, I think, or daughters, they go to GW or went to GW, and they moved into a neighborhood that he said I wouldn't move into. And he says, and I kind of go, oh my God, I don't know if I want my daughter in this neighborhood, but they're happy as they can be, and we've watched, for example, the H Street corridor. Here in Washington, D.C. We look at what has happened to U Street, Shaw in Washington, D.C., Columbia Heights. This is Washington, D.C. I guess the same could be said about New York. The same could be said in neighborhoods in L.A. So what's going on, Jennifer, from a real estate point of view, and are these smart investments, and why are the millenniums and the Generation X making these moves? Are they forced into it because they can't see, I've said they're forced into it because they can't afford to live where they grew up, especially when it comes to suburbia. And things have changed. The cost of fuel, getting back and forth to work, the whole 9 yards.
Well, there's two things that have really changed. Two things. One, it is the cost, because in a lot of those neighborhoods you can get in for what a first-time home buyer is able to afford. Again, even putting together the first-time home buyer grants and all the different programs, it's still, the price is one of them. But the other thing is again, you said cost of fuel. It's cost of fuel, so again, back to price. But the third part is truly lifestyle. Now, one of the things in real estate that I've been in real estate 19 years now, just going on to my 20th year. And when I first got into real estate, nobody had heard about what's called a walkability index. In all the different neighborhoods now, there's a walkability index. And that's a really important thing, because if you don't have a high walkability index, if you can't walk to the grocery store. I was
going to say, define what a walkability index is, what your clients are asking.
And this is something that's nationwide. They're saying they want to be able to walk to the grocery store, again, in bad weather. If it's raining or snowing, could they walk to the grocery store? Can they walk to public transportation, whether it's a bus or a metro, or like H Street, a trolley train? Is there some place they can walk to? What about their work? Are they close to their work? Because again, real estate is always tied to unemployment versus employment. So are you going to be able to work in the neighborhood? That's another thing. Or within one or two neighborhoods away. It's really about what is that lifestyle that I can create? This is where my coffee shop is and my grocery store and then my hangout. So it's about that walkability, it's about price, but it's also about, is this a neighborhood that I think I can find myself having fun here? I give people homework assignments. Okay, you're thinking about that neighborhood. Go there and go to the grocery store. Make sure you go out to the coffee shop and to a restaurant. And then see if that's a neighborhood you really like. So those are some of the things that are defining
But many
it.
of these homes have to be remodeled. They have they're not they have to be upgraded. And so what do you say to those? Because that has to be part of the financial picture too, doesn't it?
It does. It very much does. And if somebody has the wherewithal, there are loans out there if they don't have the cash to do it. And that's an amazing thing because it's totally revitalizing neighborhoods by having people come in and completely renovate those places.
So you'll be talking about that in the boot camp.
Absolutely.
Now, from a tax standpoint, Lou, what kind of impact does that have on people's taxes?
Well, I was thinking as you and Jennifer were talking, it's sort of like that old school cliche when they say, whatever you do, just get in your first house. And within reason. And if you can go in and, as you say, buy a fixer-upper, so to speak, at least what you do is you lower your taxes because when you finance that transaction through a mortgage, the interest and the property taxes offset your income. So automatically, Joe, by getting into, as Jennifer says, that first house, you almost create a raise. You stimulate a financial raise in your bring home pay on an annual basis because now you're able to deduct essentially the same price that you would be paying as a renter now becomes a tax deductible transaction, and you can leverage on that, as we always talk about a lot of times in the tax world. When that asset appreciates and then you come back 5 years later, like you say, people put in dollars to improve the value of that property, upgrade it, well, it's going to appreciate. And there are ways for you then to borrow against that equity on a tax-deductible basis.
Now, one of the things that, and let's talk about the older generation, one of the things we just did, we just refinanced. Because, once again, we moved in, we hope for appreciation, we're looking at the neighborhood, they're building everything. God, everything. I mean, they found they were building a hotel across the street now. They're building everything. So the appreciation allowed us to refinance. Now, this goes back to what Lou said. We, in essence, refinanced and basically gave ourselves a $500 raise.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean, because now it's $500 less.
And that's learning to leverage an asset. You're learning to leverage your real estate. And again, like you were just talking about all those billionaires, they've learned to leverage their assets. And a lot of those assets are real estate.
Yeah.
And there are some people who would argue with it being an asset because, again, when the whole market took a downturn, people were afraid and they don't want to consider it an asset. But what you just said is so critical. I mean, think about that, a $500 a month raise.
I mean, $500, excuse me.
SiriusXM's not necessarily.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can at least take Sherry to dinner.
Exactly.
Periodically. but then, lady, all right, so let's do this. We're going to run out of time. So this will be the two of you together. Let's give everybody the when, what, where, and how to sign up. So who wants to take that? Jennifer, Hammond, Lou Hutt, go ahead.
Well, we'll go ahead and we'll send the information over so you can put it on your Facebook page. There's a link that they have to click on, and then they have to do it. And they only have until Wednesday
to sign up.
Because it's
limited seating.
Limited seating.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is what RSV at SiriusXM.com.
Is that it? RSV?
Yeah. Oh, right. Yes. RSVP.
RSVP.
Like you're reserving. At SiriusXM.com.
Okay.
And you've got to put in the subject line, boot camp.
Boot camp.
Okay.
But as Jennifer says, we'd love to have you. It's a great opportunity, a great way to spend a Saturday morning because I do say from A to Z, we're going to talk real estate's our primary focus, but we'll talk about other assets.
Yeah.
And the idea being to invest in assets that appreciate. That's the key.
And where will the boot camp be held?
In here in Washington, D.C., in the studio here in Performance One. So.
Oh, okay. So you can get about 50 people or so in there.
Exactly.
Well, not only that, they'll get a chance to peep the Joe Madison studio. because that is next to the Performance Center. And
it's
man,
around
I
the
tell
corner,
you, Joe, I mean, man, that's like looking in down Madison Avenue or something in New York. It's fabulous.
Well, let me tell you what really is going to be fabulous, and that is the boot camp. I mean, this is a very smart thing to do. The timing is perfect. Now that spring is sprung, at least in this part of the country. Pity if you live in Denver today, but
yeah,
2 feet of snow and 24 degrees wind chill factor. But that'll break. And this isn't just for Washington, D.C. folks. Now, Lou, help me out here. I'm going to leave with at least one question. Let's say somebody's listening in Dallas or Texas or Detroit, and they say, you know what, or maybe they're in North Carolina, and they say, you know what, I'll drive up, I'll fly up. This is worth it. Is there a tax benefit?
Absolutely. I just said this on my show this weekend. If you have out-of-pocket expenses associated with going somewhere to learn something, and you're in business, it's a tax deduction. Even if you're not in business, in some instances, if it improves your skills, your on-the-job skills, arguably it's still a deduction as an unreimbursed employee business expense. So there are ways to maximize this. As you say, Joe, great opportunity. We talked about real estate. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship and starting your own business. So there's going to be a lot of coverage. We'll talk about qualified retirement savings, just a wealth of information, and it's going to be structured.
I'm laughing because Sherry got a tweet from somebody some time ago, a guy who calls himself the Black Eagle.
Oh, my.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. And
there's only one Black Eagle.
That's what we told him. And wait a minute. But he had the nerve to get an attitude saying that I was cutting in on his speaking engagements because everybody thinks it's Joe Madison. So I told Sherry, you tweet back and tell him that's the benefit of trademarking. And I learned that from Lou Hutt.
That's a business strategy.
Hey, that's a business. Hey, Lou, you got to bring that up in your boot camp. Because I'm gonna tell you, I learned that from Lou. I learned that, so I trademarked that sucker. And I told Sherry the next time he tweets, tell him he'll be talking to my attorney. It's called cease and desist. Anyway, we'll have fun with it. Okay, guys, so you got to sign up by Wednesday, and I thank both of you for coming in, and I really want to push this because this is just...
Hey,
I mean, people pay big bucks for this kind of stuff.
That's right.
It's free.
It's free, man.
Joe,
yeah.
And I want to make sure we get the time in. That's 9 a.m. to 11 Eastern Standard Time this Saturday, May 17th.
All right. So, guys, I'm going to tell you, people pay big, daylight. Well, daylight. Who cares nowadays? Daylight. It's long East Coast time, But anyway, Tracy wanted to make sure y'all said daylight savings time. Yeah, okay.
Daylight
well, that's for farmers, man. But this is.
I guess you got to be specific.
Right? I guess, All right, then. Thank you both for coming in,
hey,
Jennifer Hammond and Lou Hutt. And again, I can vouch for both of them because I've done business with both of them. And and most important of all, and I'll close with this, integrity. That is the most important thing when it comes to business, is integrity.
Absolutely.
I mean, really. Because I'm dealing with some folk who need a lesson. We ought to have a boot camp in integrity. But that might be the next boot camp.
Very good.
Yeah. We'll continue here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right.